Good morning. Welcome to the North Shore Unitarian Church, where our mission is to empower people to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. My name is Ryan Gunther, and I'll be your Sunday service associate this morning. I'd like to give an extra welcome to any newcomers or visitors who are with us this morning. We are glad that you're here. If you'd like to learn more about our community, I encourage you to sign in on the iPad right out there in the foyer. If you have any questions about our congregation or about Unitarian Universalist tradition, our connections coordinator, Ariel, or any of our friendly volunteers wearing greeter buttons would be happy to chat with you. And after the service, I'd invite everyone from longtime members to first-time visitors to come downstairs for coffee, tea, and conversation. In this community, no, we're going to talk about that later. Yeah, we are on top of things. You don't need to shout things out. In this community, we celebrate people from all walks of life, no matter how you make your living or how you experience the sacred, no matter who you are or who you love. We hope you will feel welcome here. Please take a moment now to turn off your cell phone when it's not ringing and nobody is looking at you. Nope, I said that. We are a busy congregation with many things going on, so please read all of the announcements in the order of service, and some of them are up there on the screen. And I also have a couple of extras this morning. First of all, do you love your choir? We would like you to show that love by coming to see Amal in a couple weeks, the musical being performed the weekend of December 15th and 16th here at the church in the afternoon. It is family-friendly, 1 hour long, full of music, comedy, and Christmas spirit, and it is a great opportunity for you to support the choir and its financial commitments to this church with your money. This morning, immediately after the service, we'll be having our monthly drop-in conversation, UU 101. This is an informal visit with Ariel Hunt-Bronwyn, our connections coordinator, for visitors and newcomers and anyone wishing to learn a little bit more about our tradition and our congregation. If you'd like to chat, please wait for Ariel immediately after the service up here by the stage. As this is the last day of the Canvas, I now invite Mark Pizarro up to give us a Canvas update.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing on this fabulous morning? Good. So, first I want to just fill you in on where we are with the Canvas campaign. As of Friday morning, we had received pledges totaling $229,808, which is 84%, which is 84% of our target of $275,000. And that was from 121 generous pledgers, you know who you are, which is 81% of our target. I feel we need to have 150 pledgers to hit our target of $275,000. So we're also getting very close on the numbers. And just to give you some context why I think this is good news, is that last year, which was a very successful year for the Canvas, we raised $260,000, the most we've ever raised in the history of this congregation. But at this point, after 4 weeks, we had received pledges totaling $201,076, which was 76% of the target last year of $265. So we're ahead by almost $30,000 in terms of dollars, and from 115 pledgers, which was 78% of the 147 who actually pledged. So, and that result is due to it's due to two things. One, of course, first of all, to all of you who gave so generously, so thank you again. And also to the extremely hard work of the Canvas team. So there's the Canvas committee, and I won't go into all the names for brevity, but if you come downstairs to the celebration that Ryan mentioned, I'll tell you more about these wonderful people and the Canvas team of 24 canvassers. So a lot of people gave their time and effort to make this happen. So please come downstairs and join us. There's going to be free soup. Yeah, free soup. free treats, baked and healthy vegetable treats, and also coffee and tea, all free as a thank you from the Canvas Committee and aided by the Parents Support Program. So we invite you to come and join us. And there's also going to be a skit about the meaning of Christmas, about the meaning of canvas. They both begin with C. About the meaning of canvas, and it's family friendly and it's very funny. We had a dress rehearsal at the Canvas potluck all ages dinner, so it's very funny. I think all the kids will enjoy it, and even the parents might enjoy it if you can understand it. The kids will get it. And last but definitely not least, I would like to introduce our testimonial speaker today, Sonia Macro. And Sonia, for those of you who don't know her, is a longtime Unitarian. She joined the Oak Street Church in the 70s. She came to North Shore Unitarians in 1992. And she authorized me to share the following facts with you. One, she's a mother. She has 3 children. 2, she's a grandmother. She has 13 grandchildren. 3, she is a great-grandmother. She has 5 great-grandchildren. So I was already jealous when she told me she had 13 grandchildren, because I don't have any grandchildren yet, and I would love to be a grandfather. But anyways, when she told me about the 5 great-grandchildren, it's like... And the other thing she told me, which I think describes her to a T, she's 94 and still roaring around. So please welcome Sonia.
Well, I don't know how I follow up from that. Maybe just leave it right there. Anyway, I just want to give you a brief biography of why I'm here. I came to Vancouver in 1967 as a widow with 1 adult child and 2 school-aged children. If it was in today's climate, we would not have survived, but we struggled and we made it. So when I found the Vancouver church, you can imagine my contribution was literally the widow's mite. My first encounter with the North Shore Church was when I chose to have my husband Don Macro's memorial service here in 1991. After that, I began to come regularly because I was introduced by my good friend Isabel Ennis, a founding member of this church. Here I have found a community of kindred spirits and very dear friends. I have been held up in times of sorrow, particularly when my son was murdered in 2005, and Jill Whitford conducted a very moving farewell for him at my house with close family and friends. I was on the Care and Concerns Committee for many years, which gave me as much solace as I was able to give to others. Bidnight, I still can't get used to Funfest. It's still Bidnight. Is one of my favorite nights of the year, giving me a lot of my social life to look forward to. I remember one memorable night having the Raging Grannies at my house as an offering. Do you remember these amazing women with their outrageous hats and song lyrics taking the mickey out of the thorny issues of the day? It was a fun evening. I was reminded of how much this community means to me when seated in the hot tub next to someone from my water class. And don't laugh, you can have very meaningful conversations seated in a hot tub. Who asked me how I remained so positive, which took me aback at first. So after a few cliches, I told him all about the Unitarian Church and all it has given me, to be inspired, to be curious, and to be involved. So I don't just have one reason to support our beloved church, but a multitude of reasons, and I will continue as long as this 94-year-old bod hangs up. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison and Toby, for that beautiful rendition of Peter Mayer's gorgeous song. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Barbara Tenhove. I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as your consulting minister. And on this beautiful day, I greet you with joy. Isn't it wonderful to walk out into the day and see the sun shining? It opens my heart, makes me feel a little better about the world. Try to keep that spirit of wonder and awe that we learn from children, that we learn from listening to songs like that we learn from someone like Sonia, that we learn from each other. It's a beautiful thing. It's just a beautiful thing. This morning we are going to celebrate awe, mystery, and the humble, because they're all joined together in my book. But as we continue this journey, let's sing together one of my favorite songs. This was written by Joyce Poley, who many of you know. I met her years ago. She's a wonderful Canadian songwriter. And I know you know this song, but I want to remind you in the last verse, when she talks about God, which I know pushes some buttons here, my friends, but she uses the expression, the God of my heart, or the God of our heart. But you got to smush it together. God of our heart, God of our heart, God of our heart. You can do it. So let's rise in body or spirit and sing together.
Arthur C. Clarke famously wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And there is no better proof of this than rice cookers. Every other kitchen appliance, from blenders to microwaves to rice cookers' embarrassing cousin, the bread maker, have a variety of controls that require knowledge and experience to operate successfully. But a rice cooker does one thing and has one button. Just add the right amounts of rice and water, push the button, and it cooks it and turns off when it's done. How does it know when it's done? Magic. Well, except that this is 2018 and Google exists, so there's no excuse not to know anything anymore. I recently made the mistake of Googling how do rice cookers work, and now the world is a little less magical. You can look it up too if you want, but I would suggest that you don't, because the knowledge will gain you nothing. You won't be able to build your own or even repair one if it breaks. Trust me, I know. But you will have cost yourself a little bit of life's mystery. The science of rice cookers is remarkably simpler. Simpler even than the science that explains rainbows or lightning or the flickering flame of a candle. But no less magical for that simplicity. And so this morning I dedicate this flame to those little bits of everyday magic that, even knowing the how and the why, are still magical in spite of that.
I invite you, if you choose, to join with me now in a time of prayer or reflection. Let's take a few deep breaths together. Gracious One, whom we call by many names, on this day, in this moment, we feel extraordinary gratitude for our young people, for the little ones who are learning more in a moment than we might learn in a year, for those in school whose brains are just so elastic and yet whose wonder is so open, for our youth who struggle and challenge themselves and us, but who go out into the world with new ideas. We pray that we will build a world for our young people so that all of us may create something better than we have now. The little children will lead us, and in particular, our youth. On this day, our hearts are full, as they are always full, and we hold in those hearts of ours struggles, our own, but also the struggles of people we love. If there is someone in your life that you wish to bring into the embrace of this beloved community, to be held here and known here, I invite you first to bring their face into your mind. Perhaps they are still on this planet with us, perhaps they have died. But if there is someone that you wish to name, I invite you to speak those names into this circle now. Jeffrey, his family, Brooksy. I invite Ryan to light our first candle for all of these names that we have spoken and the names of those that we hold in our hearts. I'm also so aware that in these last few days we have been hearing news of devastating fires to the south. Dozens are known to be dead, hundreds more likely. Towns destroyed, forests decimated. Our climate is changing, we know this, and these fires are just one horrible reminder. And so I invite Ryan to light our second candle for all those who have been lost, for all that we have lost, but also in hopes that perhaps we will learn and we will change. Let us take some time in silence now to hold all of this in our hearts and to pray or reflect in our own way. Not long ago, I was sitting in a quiet room with some good friends, talking about religion and faith and spirituality. This group of people was very diverse, racially, culturally, and in a lot of other ways. But we had one thing in common. We were all active and committed Unitarian Universalists. Our views of spirituality varied to some degree, yet all of us had something to add to the conversation. All of us, it seemed, knew something about mystery, about holiness, about faith, about the sacred. One friend in particular said it very well. Religion and spirituality spring from the place, he told us, where the awesome meets the familiar. Where the awesome meets the familiar. Wow. I immediately resonated with this wonderful way of describing spirituality. And describing spirituality and encouraging it is something that I have done often in Unitarian settings. For you see, I believe in naming and claiming our faith as both intellectual, yes, but also spiritual. And so I do so this morning by exploring this wonderful expression, where the awesome meets the familiar. The word awesome has gotten a rather bad rap due to its incredible overuse. Wow, man, that's awesome. My mother actually made my older sister promise never to use the word again. But since our theme this month is awe, let's let go of that sillier understanding of awesome and go straight to awe. Now, I would posit that most of us here in this room have at some point in our lives been touched by awe. I've heard many stories throughout my long years in the ministry of awe in the face of birth and death, stars and sea, love and even loss. I've had my own experiences of awe too, beginning with one that happened to me when I was just a kid. As I said earlier, I think kids are good with wonder and awe, better in some ways than adults. When I went to camp in the 6th grade, we took a hike in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, near where I grew up. Now, I am not outdoorsy at all, so going to camp outside was kind of a problem for me. And when we were forced to take a hike up a mountain, I had no expectations except for blisters and maybe a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the top. Instead, when I got to the top of that mountain, I was struck dumb. I didn't know what the word awestruck meant, but that's what happened to me. I was struck by awe. Everything I saw was lit by an inner flame. Everything was more beautiful, more perfect, more amazing than I had ever experienced in my life. And for what seemed an eternity, I watched and I saw and I knew that I was not alone, that the earth was alive, and that I belonged. I've never forgotten that experience. And it still returns to me when I need to feel connected to what really matters. It was in every real way awesome. And it awoke in my child's heart a longing and a sense of belonging that led me to deepen my belief in what I call spirit, and sometimes even call by that old and wounded word, God. My experience on that mountaintop is far from unique. Perhaps you have a story of awe when you felt overtaken by that awful joy that is the mystery and wonder of life. But awe, it seems, does not come easily or readily to everyone. And perhaps this is because for many the idea of awe is caught up with fear. Awe has too often been used as a weapon. Human-made structures that we look on today as great examples of architecture or engineering, like the pyramids in Egypt or the cathedrals in Europe, were built to make ordinary humans feel very small, and the god or the king or the priest very big. It's not surprising that the word awful has come to mean something terrible. But there are, of course, many positive and powerful ways to experience awe. Awe comes, I believe, when we face the mystery of our connectedness to all of life. And I felt that kind of awe on my mountain. But it can and does happen in many, many places. In essence, I believe that the kind of awe at the heart of our faith emerges when we feel deep in the well of our being that we belong, that our life matters, and that we and all of the creatures of this earth are one. Now, this concept is Unitarian, for our heritage and faith remind us that by whatever name we call the holy, it is at its essence one. Now, we may use many names to speak of that oneness, but it's a powerful unity that we all can experience. When we feel that oneness, we can know the kind of awe that opens us to a deeper understanding of what our life means, particularly in relationship to the rest of the planet. But it can also open us to the familiar, or as I prefer to call it, the humble. So let's take a look at humility. Now, humility is a far less comfortable topic for Unitarians even than awe. As a group, we are not the most humble of people. And if you think that I am pointing fingers at any of you, rest assured, I'm pointing it directly at myself. Well, religiously, humility can be even more loaded with baggage than awe. For many of us, humility in the face of God conjures up people prostrate in front of altars, flagellating themselves, or feeling pressure to confess to imagined sins for the sake of absolution. But like awe, humility has a strong part to play in our faith. My father taught me to understand that humility has a profoundly simple definition. To be humble, he told me, was to remain teachable. To remain teachable. Whenever we think we know it all, real humility reminds us to stay open and willing to learn. The late Unitarian Universalist minister and popular author Forrest Church, believed that accepting our mortality forces us to stay humble. I mean, all of us are finite, and we are not immortal, and we are not God. As Forrest puts it in his book, Bringing God Home, life requires a measure of humility, and we too can lift up our sights by lowering our pretensions. Well, humility is one way to stay grounded. Humility invites us to always remain open to what the world has to teach us and not be afraid to say that we don't know. In her book, Kitchen Table Wisdom, author Rachel Naomi Remen echoes this sentiment. She writes, "As a physician, I was trained to deal with uncertainty as aggressively as I dealt with the disease itself. The unknown was the enemy. The words, 'I don't know,' had long been my statement of shame, of personal and professional failing. Yet in dealing with illness and dying, Raymond began to open herself to the awe-filled mystery inherent in life and death. Rather than trying to explain away the strange, wonderful, and powerful feelings that death and healing evoked, she began to just let it be. I no longer feel that life is ordinary," she writes. "Every day is filled with mystery." And then she concludes with these words. "In some fairy tales, there is a magic word which has the power to undo the spell that has imprisoned someone and free them. Usually the words were some kind of nonsense like Shazam. My magic words have turned out to be, I don't know." The magic words, "I don't know," are the essence of both awe and humility. And they are also at the heart of our faith. Well, how, might you ask? Well, when we approach the universe with awe, while our first response can and should likely be, "Wow!" our second response should be, I don't know. Not knowing does not mean not appreciating. It simply allows us to acknowledge the mystery of life without apology. When we say, I don't know, with awe, we accept that life and creation are mysterious and wonder-filled and that we cannot know everything about them. Thus, we have a faith that affirms that creation is too grand and complex to be defined by narrow creeds. And when we say with humility, I don't know, we acknowledge that there's still more to learn, that we do not know it all, and that revelation is not sealed. Thus, we have a faith that affirms that spiritual growth is a continuing process of learning. Well, saying I don't know is a hard thing to do. We live in a world where knowledge is power, and to admit our ignorance about something may seem weak, even stupid. I mean, Ryan told us we can always Google it, right? But sometimes it just makes sense to tell the truth and say, no, I actually don't know that. It won't kill you. Well, I don't know. I don't know. These three little magic words may be at the heart of real faith. I mean, they challenge us to meet mystery with an open heart, even as we ask hard questions that deepen our understanding and broaden our knowledge. I believe that a willingness to be unsure is critical to our spiritual well-being. Well, as a religious tradition, we Unitarian Universalists at least try to acknowledge that there are things that we don't know and to accept that others may experience the world differently than we do. Yet there are times, even within our liberal faith, that we fall into the trap of thinking we know it all, when we are absolutely, positively sure we are right. Well, that's where awe and humility come into play. Whenever I'm tempted to want to say that my way is right and you are wrong, I try to remember to take a deep breath and say, I don't know. I try to face the mystery of life with a sense of awe and my own place in it with an attitude of humility. I try to remain teachable and to stay open to this amazing and wonderful world in which we live. Well, mystery and truth can combine to create powerful connections to all that is and to help us grow in our spiritual understanding. Thus, it is here that my friends' view of faith as the place where the awesome meets the familiar becomes very real for me. For Unitarian Universalists and for many others who follow an open-hearted approach to religion, the world is not a bad place, fallen from God's graces. To us, the world and everything in it can be approached with awe. For we have learned that the holy dwells not just in the realm of the unknown, but in the here and now, in this place, in this moment among us. Now, it can be hard to feel it sometimes. I mean, life can seem mundane, routine, far from holy. Yet by cultivating a sense of awe, we have the opportunity to look at the world with new eyes. Everything is holy now, Allison reminded us in that song by Peter Mayer, including birds, including trees, including each of you. Rachel Naomi Raymond tells the story of the Christian mystic Teresa of Avila. Teresa had difficulty in reconciling the vastness of the life of the Spirit with the mundane tasks of her convent, the washing of pots, the sweeping of floors, the folding of laundry. At some point of grace, the mundane became for her a sort of prayer, a way she could experience her ever-present connection to the divine pattern, which is the source of life. She began then to see the face of God in the folded sheets. Now, we may not see God in the sheets, but perhaps we can find something of the holy in a child's smile, in the rustling leaves, in the aching beauty of an autumn sunset. And we are, I believe, more likely to encounter the mystery and wonder of life if we approach the world in humble ways. There is much about life and the living of it that we just don't know. And Ryan, we can't actually Google it all. We might be able to Google some of it, but not all of it. I mean, all the tools at our disposal, the computers, scientific methods, higher criticism, business plans, etc., they can't explain why our heart aches when we see a loved one in pain, or why our world shakes when we hear our newborn baby cry. Facing the enormous mystery of life and death with, I don't know, humbly on our lips is a religious posture that works. We can, as one of my favorite poets says, live the questions with humility, wonder, and joy. Well, to live in the place where the awesome meets the familiar is to go against much of what our modern world expects of us. Arrogance is far more popular than humility, and awe is too often reserved for celebrity sightings. Yet I would argue that the religious path offers us a better way to navigate through the shoals of modern life. Cultivating a spirit of awe does not require a traditional belief in God or the afterlife. Cultivating a spirit of humility does not mean debasing oneself in fear or thinking that you are dumb or stupid or bad. The Spirit only requires of us a willingness to remain open to all that life has to teach us, and to accept that the mystery of life is not something to be afraid of. Indeed, it is something to be revered. Well, look around you. See the beauty and wonder of this community, of this world, of all creation. Can we approach this day with awe? Can we approach each other with humility? These two pillars of the faithful life can serve us well, particularly if we remain willing to say with awe and humility these awesome and humble magic words. Say them with me. I don't know. Amen, and blessed be.